Hey guys, what's going on? Megan here. Been a long time. Had to take a break as usual. You guys already know the deal. When the stock market is booming, I got to take a break and focus on what pays the bills. YouTube is just my passion, as you guys know. I do this for fun, so it takes a back seat, when the market is on fire. But anyway, so it's the new year. I figured I'd come back with some videos for y'all. Why Mexicans? Today's Friday, by the way, so we're doing Fun Fact Friday, if you haven't noticed. So, why are Mexicans so good at fighting, right? And when I say Mexicans, guys, I'm referring to pretty much, I'm using Mexicans, but it includes, most of Latin America, right? So Latinos, Hispanics, whatever you want to call it, right? So it's not just Mexico. That includes the rest of Latin America. That includes Cuba, Puerto Rico, whatever. So pretty much Native American descendants. So why they're so good at boxing? In case you be living under a rock, they have a huge amount of world champions in boxing, of course. So the question arises, why? Now, before I get deeper into the video, I have to make a disclaimer every freaking time because people just don't listen, right? So disclaimer, this video is not for everybody, guys. This video is for people who have a sense of humor, right? Pretty much my subscribers, right? People who have thick skin, who are not offended by every little detail, right? People who are open-minded, curious, and obviously, believe in facts over feelings, right? I hate the society where people only agree with facts when it makes them feel good. The moment a fact makes them feel bad, it's like, oh, no, fuck that, right? Science is science, facts is facts, right? So if you're easily butthurt, just don't watch this video. It's not for you, right? And these are the people that I don't want watching this video. If you're too serious, you can't laugh, you're too sensitive, you're close-minded, you have the victim mindset, social justice warrior motherfucker, just leave, man. I do not want you guys in my comment section. I said it last time in the last video, and I still saw y'all in my comment section. So just dislike the video and get lost. Now, back to the actual topic. First, let's get this out of the way, right? Race does exist, okay? Yes, we part of the, we're part of the human species. We one big fucking family, but we have our differences, as you can clearly fucking tell. That's why you can send your spit or blood sample over to a company, and they can tell what race you are without even looking at you. People can look at your DNA and say, okay, you Asian, you African, you European, whatever, right? So we have our differences, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with race. There's nothing wrong with population, ethnicity, whatever you want to fucking call it, right? To me, I see it as like a fucking big ass video game, man. I see it as, we all have our perks, we have our strengths, we have our weaknesses. It's like a big ass RPG, right? Even if you look at a family of white people, a family of black people, or whatever. Even within the family, there are differences. Some are taller, some are shorter, some are smarter. There are differences. So why in the hell is it not okay to understand that there are differences between people who are not only they're not part of the same family, but they're fucking evolved in completely different parts of the world, different biomes, different climates. Come on, guys, right? So for the record, yes, when I say race or ethnicity, I'm referring to different populations who've adapted in different parts of the world, right? So I don't want to see my comment section, there's no such thing as race. Shut up. All right. And again, before I go further into the video, there goes my fucking bootleg Microsoft Paint drawings to illustrate natural selection. For those of you guys who skip biology, natural selection is simple, guys. It affects not just animals, but it affected our development as humans as well. In this example here, right, obviously this is made up, right? I just drew this real fast just to prove my point. Which mouse do you think is going to survive on the left? Obviously the green mice, right? Because they blend in better, right? They're not going to get this shit snapped up. He's going to die. He's going to die. He's going to die, right? So when you come in the future and you see there's a bunch of green mice here, that doesn't mean that the green mice are just better or more superior. It just means they're better adapted to the environment. That's it, right? Same thing on this side, right? Here, the green mice are going to fucking die, right? So that's the way I see differences between races and between populations, right? Don't get butthurt over it. It's just natural selection. Another example is here. Obviously, if you live in the north, higher latitude, you're going to be thicker, bigger, stockier, right? Because of Bergman's rule. If you live at lower latitudes, where it's obviously hot as fuck, close to the equator, you're obviously going to have, lankier body, smaller body, longer extremities, and things, on and so forth. That doesn't mean that this one is better than this one, right? They're just better adapted to the environment. Bergman and Allen's rule, right? Lastly, why is this gorilla on this side of the lake bigger than this one? Simple, right? Here, you obviously have a fucking predator. Look at this ugly ass cheetah I drew here, or leopard, what the fuck that is, right? And there's obviously less resources. And sure enough, when you look in the animal kingdom, wherever you have predators and lower resources, males are bigger. They have to compete for females, right? Whereas here, when there's no predators, resources are abundant, the sexual dimorphism is not as big, right? Right? So this fucker's gonna pass on his genes easily, right? There's no competition. His kid's gonna come out looking like him. And this big ass guy's gonna pass on his soul ass genes, right? It's just natural selection, guys. All right. So let's move on now. And by the way, this is a quick PowerPoint slide that I put together just to show you guys, all the different adaptations that humans went through throughout the globe, all the different ones. I don't have time to go over this right now because the video is gonna be too fucking long. But if you want, I could make a video on this on one of the future Fun Fact Fridays. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and explain all the different adaptations: Asians, Africans, East, West, Indians, you name it. Anyway, all right. So back to the video. So first, reason number one, why Mexicans are so good at boxing. Number one is obviously genes. As always, it's always a combination of genes and the environment, right? Genes and culture, genes and environment, nature, nurture bullshit, right? In the black video, it was genes and obviously the environment. I mentioned malaria and all that stuff. In the white video, the video on strongman, I mentioned obviously genes, which is superior height, larger frame, and obviously the environment, which is again protein, access to, all those other things. So you always gonna have a combination of both, right? The question is, how much does each contribute? So first is endurance, right? You gotta understand, guys. Boxing is very, very endurance based, and a lot of people who have no experience with boxing think that it's just fast twitch muscles and a lot of big muscled up motherfuckers. No, there's a lot of endurance that goes into boxing, right? And you got to be able to make it past the first few rounds, especially if you're doing the lighter weights. Keep in mind, this video is not about like heavyweight boxing. I'm mainly talking about middleweight, lightweight, and stuff like that, right? This is where Mexicans and Hispanics dominate. On a genetic level, they're pretty much on the other side of the extreme when it comes to fast and slow twitch muscles, right? Again, blacks are the most fast twitch dominant people on the planet. When I say blacks, I mean West African descendants. If you haven't watched my video, go check it out. I'm going to skip a lot of details to keep this video short. But they have the biggest percentage of fast twitch muscles. So very good for speed, very good for power, very good for jumping and, building muscle, all the things that have to do with fast twitch muscles. West African descendants are obviously going to dominate. And I explain why. It's mainly because of malaria and a bunch of other shit. Whereas slow twitch dominant muscles are obviously going to give you an advantage in endurance sports. So marathon running, obviously boxing, like I just mentioned. And of course, Hispanics and Latinos are on the completely opposite end, especially it's pretty much Asians and Latinos, right? East Africans as well. They're on the completely opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to slow twitch muscles. They're very, very slow twitch dominant, which gives them a huge advantage in endurance sports. And here are some genes that come into play. For example, the actinin 3 gene, which I covered in the previous video, and the one on black genetics, is found in your fast twitch muscles. If you make the actinin 3 protein, you're actually going to have stronger fast twitch muscles. You're going to recover better from workouts. Pretty much to give you an edge when it comes to power. And again, you have two alleles, the X allele, which means your body does not make enough actinin 3, especially if you have XX, right? Because you get one from your mom, one from your dad. And you have the RR allele, right? If you have the RR, then your body makes a ton of fucking actinin 3. And of course, West Africans and their descendants have the highest frequency of RR. It's like 99 to 100%, which is insane. In fact, the ones in West Africa actually have even more than the African Americans in America, which again slaps the whole stupid ass selective breeding theory out of the park, right? It's mainly because of malaria. Mexicans, on the other end, are the most XX dominant group on the planet, right? So very, very slow twitch dominant. Again, the ACE gene, I made videos about that. Blacks are more DD, which again gives them an advantage in power sports. And again, Hispanics are more II. The PPAR alpha gene, same thing. Blacks are more CC, which gives them an advantage in power sports. Hispanics are more GG. The CKM gene, which is pretty much creatine kinase. Blacks are more GG, which gives them an advantage in, again, power sports. And Latinos are more AA. And also, blacks also have the highest myostatin mutations. It's funny, people think it's actually Europeans. Actually, if you look at the studies, actually West Sub-Saharan Africans, they have the biggest, the highest frequencies of myostatin mutations, which is one other reason why they put on muscle so fucking fast. And lastly, they also have a very, very sensitive androgen receptor, again, which is another reason why they respond so well to steroids in the bodybuilding scene. And the downside of that is this also why they're, at the biggest risk of prostate cancer. For those who don't know, blacks are fucked when it comes to prostate cancer because the androgen receptor is just way too sensitive. And they have way too many androgen receptor mutations. which again, it's a good thing when you're trying to build muscle. It's bad when you're dealing with prostate cancer. Now, when it comes to Hispanics, another benefit that they have is, again, especially Mexicans and South Americans, high altitude. Right? People forget that training at high altitude or living at high altitude gives you a huge advantage when it comes to endurance sports. Right? In fact, that's why a lot of athletes actually go to train at high altitudes before when they're trying to get ready for their respective races or whatever, because it gives you a huge advantage. The body has different ways of adapting, either by increasing your red blood cells, your hemoglobin, things of that nature. Whereas these motherfuckers just live there, right? So they've adapted to that environment for a very long time. Even in Mexico, the altitude in some places is as high as like 7,000 feet or even higher, which is way higher than even Denver. So they pretty much have the added benefit of the high altitude. Same thing with Kenyans and Ethiopia, and why they're so good at marathon running, which I could make a video about that if you guys want. But altitude plays a huge role as well. They also live at very high altitudes. And lastly, a lot of people forget about this. Hispanics have some of the lowest, and I mean the lowest, frequencies of the APOE E4 allele, right? For those who don't know, if you have the E4 allele, it increases your chances of Alzheimer's, and it pretty much increases your chances of brain damage. In fact, it's harder for you to recover from brain damage if you have the E4 allele, right? And I think the studies show, I think it's up to 6 times worse. So if you get hit in the head, whether by playing football or boxing, and you have the E4 allele, you are fucked, right? It takes a lot longer for your brain to recover, and for most people that just don't even make it. And sure enough, Mexican Americans, Hispanics, Latinos, the whole South American population, they have the lowest frequency of this allele, which is amazing. This is perfect for boxing. So as you can see, there's a huge genetic component. Remember, sports performance is 65 to 70% genetics, right? We've proven that. So you got to look at genes first, right? So don't think muscle is everything, guys. When it comes to boxing, endurance is extremely important. And keep in mind, guys, back when this fight happened years ago, they were around the same weight, right? Around the same weight, obviously in the same weight class. This guy looks a lot more jacked, but guess who won the fight, right? So do not think that just because you have big muscles, it means you could win every fucking fight. No, a skinny Mexican will beat the shit out of your jacked ass if you don't come correct. Next is obviously height. Height is always going to come into play, just like it did in the strongman video. And I'm obviously trolling with this picture, guys. I know this is not boxing. This is Rey Mysterio and Great Khali. But I have to say that I'm trolling because someone is going to go in the comment section and be like, this is wrestling. This is not boxing. We know, right? Laugh. All right, so height plays a huge role, right? Again, if you're a taller boxer, you have some advantages. Mainly, you have a longer reach, but there are a lot more advantages to being a short boxer. One, your center of gravity is a lot lower, which is extremely important for obviously balance, movement, energy efficiency. It's a lot easier to bob and weave. It's a lot easier to get close to your opponent. It's pretty much once you get past the taller opponent's long reach, he's fucked, right? Because if you're shorter, you obviously can throw in more hits. You can give a lot more body shots. You can generate way more power in your body shots, especially if you're trying to hit the liver. Also a smaller target. I mean, there are so many benefits to being a shorter boxer. So many. The only downside is just the reach and obviously the fact that, a taller boxer can hit way more angles than you can, obviously downward. But for the most part, a lot more benefits to being a shorter boxer, especially if you learn to use that to your advantage. And sure enough, you can see here, these are the tallest and shortest countries. Obviously, the tallest ones are darker green or whatever the fuck this doodle color is. And as you can tell, South America and Mexico and the rest are down. And if you look at the height chart, right, the average height in Mexico is about 5'6", right? So they're between this guy and this guy, right? So between Rey Mysterio, I think Rey Mysterio was like 5'6", and obviously Eddie Guerrero. Rest in peace, by the way, guys. This is like my childhood right here. You guys know I'm a big wrestling fan. Well, I was a wrestling fan growing up. Now it's full of shit. But my childhood was destroyed when he died. But anyway, yeah. So Mexicans are usually here, right, between 5'6", and 5'7", right, which is a great population to pull boxers from, especially in the lighter weight divisions. Third reason is obviously pressure from other sports, just like I mentioned in the strongman video, right? You're not going to see, again, because of the anatomy, their body type, you're not going to see a lot of Mexicans in American football. I mean, let's look at all the major sports on the American continent, right? So you have football, you have basketball, you have baseball, you have soccer, boxing, stuff like that, right? You're not going to see them in fucking football, right? Because, again, that's dominated by mainly, whites, blacks, and Samoans, right? I say Samoans, but I should say Polynesians, Pacific Islanders, right? Most of the linebacker positions, most of the tight end positions, most of the defensive backs positions are mainly, whites and Samoans and obviously blacks, right? And of course, most of the running backs, cornerbacks, the fastest positions in football are dominated by blacks, right? It's not even close, right? Because of what I mentioned earlier about the whole faster stuff. So these three races or populations or whatever the fuck you want to call it, right, dominate football, right? Basketball is obviously dominated by blacks, right? Now, I'm not saying you're not gonna find any Hispanics in those positions. I'm just saying the frequency is gonna be low, right? Because there's always somebody in the comment section that's gonna pull out one random outlier and be like, well, this guy, it's kind of like when you talk about smoking and someone's like, well, my grandpa is 94 years old and he smokes and he's just fine. It's called an outlier, motherfucker, right? So stop mentioning outliers. I'm talking about in general. So you're not going to see a lot of Mexicans in the NFL. You're not going to see a lot of, Hispanics, playing as centers, shooting guards, power forward, small forward, stuff like that. It's very rare. You're going to find some, but not a lot. So that leaves us with three sports, right? Soccer, boxing, and baseball, right? And sure enough, they dominate the fuck out of boxing, right? And also, again, they're also really good at soccer, really good at baseball, but mainly they dominate the shit out of boxing. Reason number 4, their bloodline. Don't forget, guys, Mexicans and South Americans, blah, blah, blah. These guys come from, the kingdoms of old. These guys are descendants of the Aztecs, Mayans, Incas. These guys were fierce warriors, guys. Kind of like in the strongman video where I mentioned the Vikings and, stuff like that. So these guys are not descendants of just, quiet, peaceful farmers, right? Learn your history. Look up some of the shit these guys used to do, man. Fucking insane warrior cultures. Violence was just, part of everyday life. Of course, genes had to do with that, right? And on top of that, they went through a bottleneck. Whenever your population's going through a bottleneck event, you're gonna come out with some crazy adaptations. The bottleneck event obviously being, when they were conquered. When they were conquered, a lot of them died. A lot of them died from so many, illnesses, all the germs that the fucking Europeans brought, right? Millions and millions of natives were wiped out. Well, guess who survived? In fact, guess who was most vulnerable, to die from those illnesses, whether it was measles, smallpox, whatever. Scientists are still trying to debate with, what the fuck it was. But guess who was those who had weak immune systems, those who were weak, those who already had other illnesses. If your immune system was compromised and you got struck with one of those, you were fucked. So those who survived are not only descendants of warriors, but they're also people who actually survived. Those who had great immune systems or had some natural mutations that allowed them to survive those, those plagues. And a lot of their descendants are alive today in the Mexican and rest of Latino population. So very, very, very good bloodline. And as always, I'm not saying every single one of them have that advantage, but the vast majority. Last reason is culture, right? First of all, Mexicans have a great, great work ethic. I mean, great. I lived in 3 different continents, guys. I've also visited and lived in so many states in America, and most of the Mexicans that I met, again, I said most, not all. Not only they were cool as shit, right? Especially when I lived in Texas for a bit, they were so fucking cool. But the work ethic, man. Now, of course, you're always gonna find some lazy, people in the group, but the majority of them have a sick work ethic. In fact, we even have jokes, stand-up comedy and shit, where when there's a work ethic joke, people mention Asians and Mexicans, right? These guys work so fucking hard. So culture plays a huge role. So yes, they have a genetic advantage, but they also have that willpower, that culture. Just like I mentioned in the strongman video, how people over in Iceland and those freezing ass cold countries, a lot of them respect strength, and hard work and all those things. So that also plays a fucking role, right? Second thing is they start recruiting these kids really young. Don't be surprised if you go to Mexico and you see a lot of 8, 9, sometimes even younger kids practicing or getting ready to to join that lifestyle. I don't remember exactly at what age Ryan started, but he started pretty fucking young as well, right? Next, it's also a ticket out of poverty. You gotta understand, guys. First of all, boxing is a cheap sport, right? You don't need a lot of money to be a boxer, right? So it's also a ticket out of poverty. A lot of these kids that have, I'm not saying all of them, right? Obviously, there's some rich places in Mexico and Latin America, but a lot of these kids, that's their only ticket out of poverty, right? So to them, it's do or die, right? It's different than somebody else was saying, hey, I want to box just because it's fun. Well, to a lot of these kids, I want to box because, it's my way out. So that gives them, that extra fucking drive when all else fails. And obviously, it's just a big fucking sport in the country. Just like I mentioned in sprinting in Jamaica, um, strongman and strongman competitions and Northern Europe, stuff like that. It's a huge sport in Mexico, right? Up there with soccer and baseball. So the people love it. It's part of the culture. Same reason why in America, black kids want to be, basketball players or football players. Well, a lot of the Mexican kids that want to be boxers or soccer players or baseball players. So again, it's a huge sport in the country, and that's also one of the reasons why they take it so seriously and produce so many champions. All right, so that's it, guys. Conclusion number one: they have a very, very dominant endurance profile, which helps them a lot in boxing. Number two, their height, right? The average height is about 5'6", gives them an advantage as far as center of gravity, speed, energy efficiency, technique, power, things of that nature. Number three, there's no pressure from, the NBA doesn't go down to Mexico to recruit, right? The NFL doesn't go down to Latin America to say, hey, let's find some linebackers, right? So that also eliminates a lot of the options. Number four, they have a very, very strong bloodline, not only being descendants of, the great civilizations of old, but obviously being a descendant of those who survived so many deadly plagues. And lastly, again, culture. It's a huge part of their culture. It's a nice ticket out of poverty. They start really early. And obviously the Mexican work ethic, right? The Latin American work ethic, I should say. All right, guys, that's it. Hope you enjoyed the video. There are obviously a bunch of different factors, but I got to keep this video short as possible. I got to focus on the top five. But comment below. Let me know what you guys think. Let's have a nice, mature, hilarious discussion in the comment section. And let me know what you want to see in next Friday's Fun Fact Friday. I might do one on IQ. That's going to offend a lot of fucking people. I might do one on IQ. We'll see. Alright guys, don't forget to like or share the video, subscribe and hit the bell, and buy my HSP Nucleus Overload Training Program. It's the ultimate program for maximum muscle growth. It includes full body workouts, splits, bro splits, push-pull, home workouts, you name it. Also comes with a complete guide for macros, nutrition, fat loss, muscle growth, hormones, including a meal plan. It's pretty much all my 16 years of experience condensed into one fucking book. You're also going to get free copies of any future edition. So visit team3dalpha.com and you can use the 40% off coupon code Nucleus Overload. Or you could just buy the shit at full price. Alright guys, I'm out of here.